The kit, a dozen hunting rifles in different calibers and hundreds of off-the-shelf lead alternative rounds. The test, are commercially available lead-free rounds accurate, and do they expand and do the job at 100 metres and 250 metres? Why do it? Demand for lead-free meat is on the increase. There's possible changes to legislation in the wings, and some say it's the responsible thing to do.
The last film, we were emphasising the fast and light theme. Since then, we've had a lot of different questions presented. People want to know, well, do they ricochet more? Well, do they still expand at long range? Which bullets do what? With lead cord ammunition, there are horses for courses. And it's exactly the same with all of this copper and non-lead bullets which are becoming available. There are horses for courses. If the Europeans in Germany have focused on the bullets that are working best on great big European red stags and wild boar on driven hunts, and we use those bullets and we start shooting muntjac and roe deer with them, you're going to get a lot of energy coming out the other side of the animal. You're going to get very limited expansion. You're going to think the deer aren't dying as quickly. It isn't because it's a copper bullet, folks. It's because it was the wrong bullet for the job. All right, and we're here now just trying to find out the best bullets for the job, because we in the UK have a unique situation to any other country. We've got more species of deer, we've got more small deer, so the German solution won't necessarily be the British solution. So let's work all together. We want to work with you and find out what works best. If we don't have to change, great, you just got more choice. If we do have to change, we have made field sports robust and resilient, and we can carry on forwards through a change without a problem. Thank you very much to the manufacturers who have sent us some samples to use. We've got rifles from Remington, Blaser, Mauser, Hauer, Weatherby, Browning. Basically, these are like your rifles. They're not all expensive, they're not all cheap, it's a real good selection, because we're trying to do a community assessment of the whole thing. This isn't about one make of bullet or one make of rifle. It is actually about the principle of how to get the best out of the lead-free bullets which are becoming available. Right. 3006 Vortex, 90 grain Naturalis. Clear. Plate A, what do we shoot with that, Tim?
So it's a Lapua Naturalis, 90 grain.
243.
243.
This was shot out of the little Browning A-bolt rifle, and that's a 1-inch tape, and it's a pretty solid, slightly less than 1-inch group. Now, that's the sort of group everybody's dreaming of looking for. Maybe you want it even tighter. That's the sort of group people tear their artistic souls out reloading to chase. And we just shot it right out the box with a random rifle and a random box of bullets. On to the next one, B.
300 Win Mag, RWS 165 grain, HIT.
Okay. Now with the Magnums, we've limited it to 3 because it's a hotter thing to fire, and also we're short of some of the brands in terms of the amount of ammunition we've got, and we have to do the expansion test. So the Magnum ones, 3 shots, and again, is it 2 shots? Could it have been a cloverleaf? Was that me? We'll never know. But once again, tidy enough. On to the next one.
300 Win Mag Evo Green RWS ammunition, doesn't it?
Okay.
And that's 96 grain.
And if you bear in mind, these are 2-inch yellow square, yellow circles. These are all straight out the box, MOA type groups. Yeah. All right. On to the next one, D.
That is the Evo Green 270 Winchester Short Magnum.
Okay. And
isn't it?
No problem with that. There's one there that's me. E was one of my hand loads. So okay. Which one was it?
That's your hand load. I've got no idea actually, because I've got confused now.
That's all right. that one is
yours, because I haven't got an E. That's
right.
You're trying to catch
it's the 150 grain TTSX coming out at some velocity, yeah. And I have to actually claim I suspect that one up there was me, because the rifle was shooting a little bit low here, and I remembered to aim high. But there we go. You know, they're all in the spot. Now here's an interesting one. And this is why you shouldn't blame ammunition. You should just look at the consequences of mixing different ammunition and different rifles. This is the Hornady 80 grain 243, and it's fired through the Browning A-bolt rifle, which shot this group, okay? And it just doesn't like it. maybe I had a really bad day. On average, we were shooting okay today, but it's just an example of the occasions. But bear in mind, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, it's taken us 5 plates to get one, which is less than ideal. Hands up, it's less than ideal. Could have been a bit of me, could have been a bit of the rifle, could have been a bit of the ammo, who knows. But this is why you need to check things. So
that's the 80 grain GMX.
That's it, but you shot a much better group with it further down there with a different rifle. This one?
There's a Lapua Naturalis again, 90 grain, 243.
Absolutely brilliant. And looking at that again, we've got a sub 1 inch group in terms of the elevation. The windage is slightly more spread than that, but actually it's been running about 8 to 12 miles an hour today, so that's another good excuse. Getting good at these. On to the next one.
It's Barnes TSX BT in a 270 caliber, 130 grain.
Good solid group, no problems with that one. Number 4.
Sadio and Bello, 180 grain, Energy XRG in 308.
Yeah, now this is an interesting one. It's a fairly round nosed bullet. That's what we did with it. And then I put in the other 165 grain, the Exergy Blue for the next one.
Yep.
And again, you're probably getting shooting errors down to me. You can see the potential of that ammunition. There's 4 rounds in there that have basically made 1 hole. And it's again, it's finding the right one, but draw some consolation from this. All up and down this row, there's only actually 2 of these plates that we don't rate reasonably well in terms of straight into hunting accuracy of ammunition. So let's carry on down.
So number 6 is the Lapua in 308, 170 grain Naturalis.
And again, look at that. There's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, the potential of that ammunition is getting onto thumbnail. Yep. On to 7.
Hornady 165 grain 308 GMX.
Okay, perfectly normal, sort of what I call a hunting group. No problem with that at all. On to 8.
This is 6.5 55 Hornady 120 grain Superformance.
Yep, and that's one that I've used actually. There's a batch of ammunition I've had for a couple of years, and the rifle, the potential of the rifle is the clover leaf, and those 2 that are slightly outside of it show you that I'm not perfect. And this one shows you that I should check the elevation before I start shooting, because it was left on 250 metres, because that's where the crow was. Right, carry on down.
We got Barnes in 3006 150 grain TTSX BT.
Good solid performance, no complaints on that.
Then we got the Barnes once again 3006 175 grain GRLX. That's the long range one, long range bullet.
Okay, well that's obviously got serious potential.
That's right.
Number 11.
This is a Lapua 3006 170 grain Naturalis. Interesting.
Yeah, and again,
a bigger group with that. Compared to the others, perhaps, but you know, it could be the rifle. So
with it, in a perfect world, you'd be taking 6 different groups to choose the best one, but that's kind of cheating. We just went bang like you would on a range. Yeah. I spend a lot of my life on a shooting range watching groups of people turn up, and we always have a 0 session to start with. And when they shoot the groups, I can tell you that running down here on a national average, that the average of these groups is actually above average. If you take it across the board of all this ammunition, copper ammunition doesn't shoot accurately through my rifle. You could be unlucky, that could happen with a particular brand, but on average, it shoots fine. If we did this all with lead and copper bullets in a normal shooting situation, this would actually be a good result, to be honest. And on to the last one.
And the last one, this is the Hornady 80 grain GMX. Now this,
yeah, well, that's way better than the one I shot.
4-inch group over there.
Yeah.
I mean, down to 1.5 inch probably group there.
And that was through the RPA, is that right?
Yeah, that's through the RPA.
And mine was through, it could be the twist rate, it could be the length about, who knows, it could just be that I'm rubbish sometimes.
Last but not least, we got the RWS hit ammunition in a 270 WSM, 130 grain. So that is pretty respectable, isn't it?
I'm enormously relieved, because what we're moving on to next is shooting at a great big butt full of water. Yeah. And from the look of this, we should be able to...
Half a chance, haven't we? We've got half a chance, mate. Well done.
This is a new variation on things I've done before. But if it ever at some stage looks like we're making it up as we go along, it's for a very good reason. It's because we're making it up as we go along. Good. going. Okay, 6.5. All of the bullets in there look absolutely fine. I'm not quite so sure about the GoPro. I can't see a round here which, if I'd put it through the thoracic cavity of my chosen quarry, it wouldn't have died quickly and humanely. Okay, it's really, this is really interesting actually. Looking at this, Tim, you pulled a few bullets out of a few animals, and I've pulled a few bullets out of a few animals. If you pull a bullet that looks like this out of an animal, well, if you find it, because they'll probably penetrate, but do you think it's done a good job?
I think it has actually. I mean, I just, while you've been talking, I've been checking the diameters, and they've actually all more or less doubled in the size of their diameters. They've expanded quite uniformly. And I mean, what I find really interesting is that you've got the mushroom effect from the Lapo naturalis.
Yes.
Yeah. And you've got the petals on these ones over here.
That's the GMX and the Barnes, and also the Exergy from S&B. They do the same kind of thing.
So they're achieving the same thing, perhaps in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is the application for the Evo Green slightly different?
It's trying to be the best of both worlds.
Okay.
In that if you hit a relatively fragile animal, the front section will blow up. What happens to the rear section is almost immaterial because the front section will have killed the animal. If you have a tougher animal, the front section will blow up, and if you put it into the chest, hopefully it'll blow up in the thoracic area, in the heart-lung area. But this piece will penetrate further and more deeply. The rear's still there to keep going with about 60% of its original weight. There is no perfect bullet to shoot a small animal at close range in woods, to shoot a small animal at long range across the valley, to shoot a big animal at close range, or a big animal. There's no single bullet that'll do it. We have to choose the ammunition for the task. You might have chosen the rifle for the task, you have to choose the ammunition for the task.
Would you have any problem shooting any of those rounds at a deer at 100 metres?
Absolutely none whatsoever. I'd stretch it out to 150, no problem at all. Probably go out to 200, no problem at all. As we get further out to 250, the question of the initial velocity, the shape and ballistic coefficient of the bullet, how well it retains energy and speed downrange, is going to be the decisive factor. And if any of these rounds don't expand much at 250, that isn't a failure. That's because the maker intended you to shoot them in a forest at 50 to about 120 metres probably, which is called hunting, I think, last time I looked. We're going to go back to 250 metres, which is quite a long way to be shooting at unwounded game, and we're going to shoot at the same refilled container, and we're going to recover all the same bullets, and we're going to have the next sample here, and it'll answer your questions to a degree. And you'll find that there's some of the stuff in here, and you'll look at it at 250 and think, yep, that'll work. It'll all work, it's a case of how quickly it works. I think we'll see some expansion from all of the rounds at 250, it's just a case of how much expansion. About 3 or 4 inches of wind, Tim. You wouldn't want that rotating through your thoracic cavity. I was actually expecting, from some of the clues of sort of indications we had from people engaging with the threads and the questions, that the 250 metre results would be markedly different from the 100 metre results. And I'm actually very pleased to note that they're not markedly different. There are some differences. The general run of ballistic tip with a reasonably high coefficient have performed extremely well at 100, and here's an example, the Cellier and Bellot Exergy round. You can see that they've both expanded, but you can see that the 100 expansion was ahead of the 200 expansion. Now there's some really heavy, fairly heavy bullets involved here. There's actually a 180 grain, almost a round nose bullet, but it has expanded at both. And I would have said at 250 metres, if you asked the designers of a round nose 308 bullet, are you meant to shoot game at 250 metres with it? They'd probably say no, you're supposed to shoot it in the forest basically. So there's some indications of what's been happening. I talk about velocity and the bullet having a reasonable shape to fly through the air. These rounds were fired from my 300 Winchester Magnum at 250 metres. And you can see it's extreme. It's heading for 3 times the diameter. This is a 150 grain Barnes TTSX bullet. The Hornady GMX has also done a brilliant job. Now, out of interest, these ones are 150 grain Barnes fired from a 308. And I think you can see very clearly, yes, it's expanded. Yes, you wouldn't want that flying through the middle of your chest. But this left the barrel at almost 3,500 feet per second, and this left the barrel at 3,000 feet per second. This is maybe excessive performance. This is still good performance. That is good expansion. It's double caliber expansion. And by and large, all the way through these, we have the same theme. If we cut across to the Lapua rounds, these were the rounds which were shot at 100 metres, and we had the 243. We have the 308 and the 3006. When we move the same round to 200, you can actually see it's done very much the same thing. Perhaps just a tiny bit less expansion, but really, very good. The one we have to point out for a difference, the Lapua 243 90 grain Naturalis fired at 100 metres. That's working fine. The same bullet at 250 metres, I'd use it as an emergency shot on a wounded animal, but I wouldn't take an initial shot on it. But it's fine for what it's probably been designed to do, which is to shoot at what I call sensible European and German ranges. And if you focus on the light for caliber, faster versions for your firearms, and you ask your dealers, they will ask the importers, and they will make us what we want and what we need. The message is, it's worked. There's still horses for courses. If a bullet looks like a brick, it isn't meant to be a long-range bullet. If a bullet's designed to expand extremely well at extremely long range, it's going to overexpand and blow up at normal stalking distances. Think about what you're shooting and hunting. Think about the result you expect. Prepare for what you're actually going to do. Don't get magnamitis and equip for some fanciful long-range shot and then end up shooting something in the chest at 105 metres or 60 metres and ruining half of the animal. Let's be real out there. Let's be safe and have fun. And genuinely, in the right conditions, there's not a round in here I wouldn't be happy hunting with at sensible hunting ranges. This is just part of the non-lead stuff that's available. So I think the future looks reasonably bright, whatever happens to lead in the future.